Welcome to the Skydance Mountain Author Spotlight, an arm of Authors on the Mountain, the show for creatives of all types: authors, writers, poets, musicians, artists, dancers, and craftsmen. All those who draw inspiration from creativity and from being creative. If you are an author or creator looking for motivation and innovative inspiration, this show is for you. As Stephen Pressfield says, creative work is a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got. And to that we say, Amen. This is Brett, founder and creative director at Skydance Mountain. So glad you're here today. Let's get creative. Today, we are visiting with Mary Perdue, who is a freelance turf writer and winner of multiple EQUUS Winnie awards. Her first book, Landaluce, Seattle Slew's first champion, was a finalist for the Dr. Tony Ryan Book Award for Best Horse Racing Book of 2022, an annual literary award that honors the best books about thoroughbreds and racing. What a privilege it is to visit with this gifted and delightful writer. Let's welcome author Mary Perdue to the Skydance Mountain Author Spotlight, Authors on the Mountain. Mary, good to see you. It is a treat having you here on Authors on the Mountain. Welcome to the show, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Thank you, Brett. Me too.
We have had, when did we start this? Almost a year ago, because it was in a slow burn.
Yeah.
Where you invited me to, what an honor to read this book. The book Landaluce, right here for those who are going to want to go out and get it. So it is an honor to have been asked to do this, because this is not I love history, I love horses, I love great stories, and I love great storytelling. You've got it all right in here.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. So this is a great book.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what motivated you to write a book about a 2-year-old horse who only raced 5 times in her life?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. She raced in 1982, and at that point in my life, I was employed as a book editor for McGraw-Hill Book Company, and I lived in New York City.
Wow.
And I have been a lifelong racing fan. And she was making the New York Times in 1982, which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah.
You didn't hear about Western racing, West Coast racing, California racing on the East Coast back then, which is probably a weird thing for people now to think about or try to understand. But back then, all of the important races and all the important contenders for Eclipse Awards and Triple Crown and all of that, it was all based in the East, even though the West had had a healthy racing history and very high quality horses for a long time. It just was not regarded as important or as good as what was going on in the East Coast. So just the fact that I even knew who she was in 1982, as someone living in New York, was enough to make me remember her and care about her. But as to how it actually came about to write the book, I had a lifelong ambition to visit the Keeneland Library in Lexington, just because it was a bucket list thing and I'd never been there. So I walked in one day, got up my courage, and I didn't know, I was so ignorant, I didn't know that it wasn't a lending library, that you couldn't just walk in there and say, browse the stacks and take books out and stuff like that. And so the gentleman behind the desk asked me, well, is there a particular horse that you're interested in that we could pull some things for you? And I'm standing there and I think, well, I can't say Man o' War or Secretariat or American Pharaoh. I have to say a horse that, you wouldn't just expect everything to be known about. So I said the first name that came into my mind, which was Landaluce. And he went in the back and he brought me out a file, and it was like this thin.
Really?
And I looked at it and I said, you mean nobody's written a book about this horse? And he said, evidently not, or we would have it. So I had no intention of writing a book when I walked in there the first time. But I was standing there and I thought, well, why not me? Because I just loved her so much. And I just thought that she deserved to have a book about her.
Yes, yes. Uh, so in the you mentioned Man o' War, Seattle Slew. I think of Seabiscuit and
Hmm.
Secretariat. Where does that's who the popular ones who people know. Where does she
Right.
kind of fit in as far as her ability, her her
Well, most people would know and expect and say that the greatest American racing filly of all time was a filly named Ruffian, and I would agree with that. But there were many people at the time, including turf riders like Steve Christ and Andrew Beyer and Jay Hovde, very well respected, known, top of the list
Hmm,
turf riders who, while she was racing, and she was only two, compared her to Ruffian and said she was as good as, or God forbid, better than Ruffian based on what she was doing on the track at that time. So she's right up there among people who ever saw her or who
yeah.
were involved in racing at that time. But of course, it's 40 years ago plus now.
Mhm. As I'm reading the book along, I did not read the book all the way through before I started narrating. I kind of I read it
That's cool.
one chapter at a time. Yeah, I enjoyed it that way. It was a
A
real
little suspense.
it's suspenseful. It's a nail biter. It's gripping. It's got adventure, and we'll talk about the end in just a few minutes. I don't want to give too much away right here, but and then I went and watched on YouTube. You can watch these races on YouTube. It is amazing. How many links, furlongs, how far ahead is she in most of these races? It's
Well, her first two races were, you got a juvenile filly just learning to run, just learning to race, were sprints, 6 furlongs.
yeah,
She won the first one easily, but more than that, it was the time that she ran it in.
yeah,
108.1, which is just unheard of for a 2-year-old maiden filly in her first race. The second time, though, was when she, as I put it in the book, raced her way into the history books because that was also a 6 furlong race at Hollywood Park.
yeah.
And she won that race in 108 flat by over 20 lengths. So when you think about it mathematically, how is it even possible to only run 6 furlongs and beat everybody else in the field by over 20 lengths? And that's when she really vaulted into national attention.
That's amazing. It's like they had everybody else wait at the starting gate for the first the
one of the
furlongs.
jockeys one of the jockeys who ran behind her said, I beat every horse I could see.
Uh-huh. I
She
laughed
was
at that
so
one.
far in front that the cameraman couldn't keep the whole field in one shot.
Yes,
it's
yeah.
it's it's amazing.
See, I don't watch a lot of horse racing, so you don't see that very often then. Is that correct?
That's right, and especially not at a race of that distance. And in the book, I had to do some digging and find out, well, did any horse ever win a 6 furlong race by that margin? Um, or how does that compare to other famous horses? I mean, Secretariat won the Belmont by 30 some lengths, but he was a 3-year-old colt at the end, fully mature at the end of his season that year, and it was a mile and a half race. I
Wow.
mean, it does defy comparison to a lot of other things. Um, and she also proved later that she could run at longer distances. She
Hmm.
wasn't just a sprinter. And even more remarkably about her margin of victory and the time that she ran it in at the Hollywood Lassie, the second race at 6 furlongs, was she wasn't really being asked. Her jockey was Lafitte Pincay, who's
Yeah.
everybody knows Lafitte. He wasn't, really pressing her. So that is another reason why she was so revered and admired, and people just wanted to see her.
Yes. So she had fans that made up cards and what T-shirts and all that said "I love Lucy." I love that.
Yeah, she had T-shirts, she had bumper stickers. Um, People wrote letters. People wanted pictures, locks of her hair. She
Yes.
was a celebrity. She was a real superstar for
Wow.
that in that period of time.
My goodness. And what I just the other thing I fell in love with was it was the trainer, Dwayne Lucas.
Well, yeah, a lot of
He's back right now.
people don't know that. And I didn't when I started out researching everything, that he was very early in the beginning of his thoroughbred training career when she came along.
Yeah.
He had been training quarter horses, of course, for a really long time, but he had only just made the tradition to becoming a full-time thoroughbred trainer. And he picked her out at auction at Keeneland at the yearling auction when he hadn't really been there that many times. He
Right.
was new to that as well. And he wasn't famous yet for having such a uh, extraterrestrial, abnormal ability to pick out future superstars just from seeing them at a sale.
Just like her,
Uh,
he was being tested.
yeah, but he picked her out, and at that time she was from the first crop of Seattle Slew, so he wasn't really established as a stallion at all.
Wow.
So the fact that she came along so early for him, um, and vaulted him into a national spotlight. He had won the Preakness with Codex in 1980, but that was really the first that most people in the East or nationally would have heard of him as a thoroughbred trainer. And
Right.
she became, because of her accomplishments, the first Eclipse Award winner that he ever trained. And a lot of people don't know that either.
Yeah. I love his heart and his work ethic. And I mean, I guess we're getting to, well, let's get into the story again a little bit farther down the road. I don't want to unwind slow enough that it's interesting. So here's these, you've got East Coast, West Coast. You've got
Right.
East Coast are kind of, I is it bad to say kind of snobby?
No, I say it in the book. They
Yeah, yeah.
were that, but some of it was justified, but some of
Mhm.
it was based on a lack of understanding or interest really in what was really going on in the West at that time, in my opinion.
Right, right. Can you walk us through a little bit of the buildup with the Triple Crown and all of that with just and she had some competitors as well that
Well, she's a filly, so at that point in time, it was unheard of for a filly to be considered a serious Triple Crown contender. And of course, she was only two, and
Mhm.
there was a lot of hype, as there always is, about 2-year-olds, um, becoming contenders in the subsequent year for the Triple Crown.
Right.
But she was mentioned by those same turf writers and Sports Illustrated, the New York Times, Washington Post. Um, Horse racing had a lot broader national coverage in those days. More newspapers wrote about it and featured it in their sports sections than
Mhm.
now. Um, she was mentioned almost immediately as a favorite for the Triple Crown races, the Kentucky Derby. In fact, and if I'm talking too much, just shut me up
Not at
because
all. In
I
fact,
can talk
bring it
about this
on.
stuff forever.
Oh, that's great.
In fact, at one point during that summer of 82, ABC News sent a television crew out to Del Mar to film her and do a segment on her that appeared on World News Tonight. That never
Whoa, whoa. All
happened.
right, so
It just
wait,
never happened.
when did they do that? After how many races had she done that they did that?
That after the two, after the Hollywood Lassie, the one I was telling you about, where she won by 20 something lengths, that's when they sent a crew out to cover her next race, which was the Del Mar debutante at a mile at
Yeah.
Del Mar. And that footage you can't find it. The ABC News footage you can't find on YouTube, but you can find the race itself.
Right. Yeah. So they sent the crew out, and then how did she? Yeah. Can you carry us through
How
that?
did she do in the Del Mar debutante? Well, she won, and she won convincingly, and she won all her races near at or near record time, either a track record or a stakes record, or I I said world record, but really that's kind of not something you should say because they're too hard to pin down. But
Mhm,
just
mhm.
let's say she was phenomenally fast. I mean,
Yes.
people in Europe heard about her in
Yes.
that summer.
Wow. And they had talked about why didn't she go east?
Well, that became a thing because there was one really good filly in the East, a 2-year-old filly who emerged later in the year
Yeah.
that was considered to be by East Coast people maybe as good as Landaluce, not by everyone, but by some.
Hmm.
And Princess Rooney won a lot of races and was considered a contender for 2-year-old championship filly honors. Um, but Landaluce prevailed in the voting. In fact, Landaluce, as a 2-year-old filly, received Horse of the Year votes from the same group of people, that voted for all the Eclipse divisions, and that never happens. It never happens that a 2-year-old filly would be considered to be a serious contender for Horse of the Year.
Right. And then her next race, you can,
After Del Mar,
yeah.
she ran in a little race called the Enokia Stakes, which was a grade 3 race, I believe, at the time. And that was a 7 furlong race. And she ran in that just because Wayne needed to give her something to do.
Uh-huh.
And she won that one in either track record time or near track record time. And she won by a considerable margin. And I read later, as part of my research, that she reminded turf rider John White of another horse that he observed many, many, many years later that won a 7 furlong race at Santa Anita by the exact same time that she ran it in. And that horse's name is Justify, who became a Triple Crown champion um, winner
Uh-huh.
for Bob Baffert in modern times.
Yeah. That's the Enokia was the fourth race.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the last one wasn't supposed to be the last one, but the last one was the Oak Leaf Stakes, which was a grade 1 race at the time. And that was her chance to prove that she could win a grade 1 as a 2-year-old. And
Yeah.
of course she did.
Yeah. Again, no surprises there, but everybody was rooting. It sounded like everybody was really rooting for
Oh,
her.
by that time, she was drawing record crowds at Hollywood, Santa Anita, Del Mar. I mean, standing room only. They sold out of programs. There wasn't enough spaces to park in. I mean, it's hard to express in words how popular she was and how much she meant, especially to racing fans in the West who kind of felt like vindicated that they had such a good filly and that she was only racing in the West. And that was because Wayne decided early on that he was not taking her east to win just for the opportunity to win an Eclipse Award. And he said, and was very public about it, that um, he would rather not win than take her out there just to prove her to someone, that he wasn't
Yeah.
going to do that anymore. And
Yes.
he had kind of a bitterness in his mouth about his past experiences with a horse named Terlingua. And when he did exactly that, take her east, and she didn't do very well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then when he won the Preakness in 1980 with Codex, there was a big controversy around that, and he didn't like the way he was treated by the press. And so he just decided he was going to stay there,
Wow.
and she'd either win it or she wouldn't. But there was a new thing that made it an easier call for him to stay put in the West because there were two brand new races that had only been run 1 year previous to that. And they were both for juveniles, the
Mm.
Hollywood Starlet for fillies and the Hollywood Futurity for colts, presumably. But they were both at a mile and a 16th, and they were both at Hollywood Park, where she had set both of her records and had won so convincingly in such fast times when she very first started racing. Those races were far richer purses than anything being offered in the East at that time.
Mm.
So, you know, he might have thought, probably did think, that she could earn more money staying in the West and not have to travel and not have to be on a unknown track and cope with weather and all of those things. She could just stay home, run at a distance that she'd already won on before,
Yeah.
and uh, clean up.
Yeah.
And he was going to put her in the Hollywood Starlet. She was considered a virtual lock for that race. And then he was also going to enter her 2 weeks later in the Futurity against Colts. And that was the part that everybody, it was assumed by a lot of people that if she didn't win that race, she would be one of the top three finishers in that race. That's how good she was.
Against Colts.
Yeah. And those were, Colts with Derby aspirations. They were,
Mm-hmm.
running in a year-end race, attempting to earn an Eclipse Award as a juvenile colt.
Yeah.
So if she had run in both of those races and won both of those races, it's pretty much for certain that she would have been Horse of the Year in 1982. But she also would have become the first millionaire juvenile filly ever in history. And she had a really good chance of doing it.
Yes, yeah. The other night, my wife, Melissa, and I, knowing that this was an upcoming interview, I just wanted to get back into some races, some of our favorite movies. We're big horse people. Some of our favorite movies are Secretariat, Seabiscuit, Dreamer, which I guess isn't based on a real story on that one, but the other ones were. And I was so blown away. I didn't remember how strong a personality and how confident Penny Tweedy, Secretariat's
Right.
owner, basically, how they just had to, you stake everything. This is part of what makes it an amazing story and why you're rooting for these people. You're staking everything, like Wayne was doing here, Dean Wayne Lucas. And I thought, you don't have to love horses. You don't even have to love racing. You just have to have a beating heart to enjoy these kind of things. And so as we get up here and we know that the stakes are high, we know that the world is rooting for Landaluce. What happens here? How does the tide turn?
Well, unfortunately, she became ill right before the Starlet. And after being scratched from that race, she just didn't recover. And unfortunately, she died as a 2-year-old. So that was obviously a very tragic and unexpected thing.
So sudden. What happened?
Well, there's still uh, there's still some people that don't agree or don't know exactly what it was, but the official diagnosis was a bacterial infection that she developed that she just couldn't shake, and spread throughout her system. Uh, and of course, everyone involved in handling her did everything they possibly could. But it happens to horses stabled at racetracks. It's an environment where you can pick up an infection because horses are stabled in close quarters and you have weather, and it's just like people,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kids in preschool that get sick.
Yes.
But it is very unusual for a horse to not be able to recover from it, although it does happen still today.
Yeah.
With advances in veterinary medicine. It still happens where a horse just gets an infection and can't get over it.
Right. When I got to this chapter, again, we took months to do this audiobook. When I got to this chapter, we have a horse or had a horse right here. We kept at our neighbor's farm right across the fence here. And we've had him 15 years, and he was an Arab that we just loved to pieces. And just as fate would have it, I'm reading this chapter about Landaluce struggling for her life, and he was doing the same thing over the fence.
Yeah.
And it actually it made the Landaluce story even more real for me. I got emotional for sure, and I thought, she's not just a racehorse. They're not just mourning the fact that here's their money, breadwinner. She was special. She really was special, wasn't she?
She meant a lot to a lot of people. And I don't want to tell everything that happens in the book. I want to keep some mystery or well, how did it come out,
Yeah, that's good.
left so that people will want to read it, hopefully.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
it, it's hard to explain, but it was one of the things that I really wanted to come through in the book. I didn't want my book about Landaluce to just be another horse racing book. There's lots of good ones out there. I didn't want it to just be an account, or a chronicle
Yeah.
of, she ran these races, she won this one, she won that one. I wanted it to be a story about how horses come to mean so much to people, and the connection between horses and people, and not just the trainer, the owner, the jockey, the assistant trainer, the people around her, the groom, but the fans and people who never even saw her but who just read about her, or saw that one segment on TV. And um, it I wanted that's what I was shooting for, was
Yeah.
that
Yes.
the people would see how anything that happens to a horse affects, it's a ripple effect that affects a whole lot of people around that horse, and how
Right.
much they really mean to people. They're not just racing machines.
Right, right. That came through loud and clear. You did a good job of that.
Thank you.
Yes, I was really moved, and I knew ahead of time what was going to happen, but it did not ruin the experience of reading. It's still it's so well told,
Well,
Mary. It's
thank
a
you.
beautiful, beautiful story and inspiring. Again, these horse racing, they're one of the big reasons we love them, whether we like racing or horses in general. They're just inspiring, and it's another. It's that's
Well, they
why.
have been to me. I,
Mhm.
I'm I can't even explain to you why I love thoroughbred racing. I just always have.
Yeah.
Nobody in my family has any interest in it. I
Oh,
didn't grow up around a racetrack. I never had the opportunity to see live racing until, you know, a pretty old adult. But I just always loved it. And I love the look of them. I love the way they are. I love the
mhm.
breeding. I love all the passion and commitment and time and money and effort that goes into breeding a racehorse, and raising a racehorse, and training a racehorse, and all of that. It's just interesting, and it gets me in my heart.
Yeah, well, me too. That transferred. You mentioned breeding. Did we talk about her lineage or heritage?
No, not yet.
Let's do that.
And that's the title of the book is Landaluce, the story of Seattle Slew's first champion. And that was a big part of the story. And it was one that I didn't know when I started the research, was that he had just come to stud at Spendthrift Farm.
Yeah.
And you know, she was from his first crop, so he was not established. The farm had a lot riding on him to be successful,
Um,
and so did the owners, um, Karen and Mickey Taylor, who retained a big ownership stake in him, which was not usual at the time.
wow.
And the whole story of how he became a top stallion when he was a $17,000 yearling purchase himself. And a lot of people think he didn't have the right confirmation, um, that he became such a superstar stallion, was not necessarily a slam dunk for him,
Wow.
as it is, for any stallion. Just because you're a good racehorse doesn't mean you'll be able to pass on those traits
Right.
to your offspring. And Landaluce being as good as she was, as early as she was, from his first crop, uh, definitely uh, vaulted him into the stallion major leagues right off the bat.
Yeah.
And of course, he had other runners from that first crop, none as um, explosive or, brilliant as she was, but her performance and her the attention that she garnered, really, really helped him.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And does he have any beyond Landaluce down the years now? Is there anybody still related to him that's doing well?
Well, I can't go back that many generations
Mhm.
now because he's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, his son AP Indy is just recently died, and he was one of the major stallions of the breed for many years. Um, he had many other really successful runners
Yeah.
during that during those early years and beyond. I mean, he's commonly regarded as one of the greatest thoroughbred stallions in American history. He's a foundation stallion for the breed.
Are you
So
talking Seattle Slew or APN?
yes,
Yes.
see,
Yeah.
well, both of them really,
Okay.
because he's a son. That APND being a son of Seattle Slew makes Seattle Slew what they call a sire of sires. That his
Oh,
line is going to continue through his at least one of his sons and others too,
yeah.
fillies. But no, he's assured his place, and he was, um, I believe, at the top of the North American sires list um, during some of the 80s.
Yeah. So the legacy continues then. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Has the racing industry changed much since those times? Are things different now?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, when she raced, there was no such thing as the Breeders' Cup, which for a
Hmm.
lot of people, that's the Triple Crown races and the Breeders' Cup are where most Americans um, get involved or get to see horse racing on TV or to know who the big horses are in each division. But the Breeders' Cup didn't even start until 1984. So it wasn't even a thing when she raced. Um, Off track betting, simulcasting, wasn't available in California when she raced. The only way to place a bet on a horse race in 1982 in California was to physically be at the track.
Wow.
So that's a big change.
Yeah.
Um, and California racing, just having more of a national uh, division where you have good horses everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a big change since 1982 when she raced.
Yeah. Do you ever bet on the races?
I'm a terrible bettor. I love to go to the races. I would go even if I didn't have a bet, and most of the time I don't, which I hate to say because it sounds like a lightweight thing to say, but I'm
No.
not. I do try to handicap. I'm just not that great at it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not anywhere near my primary interest or reason for going.
Sure. Yeah.
I just like to be around the horses and around the racing and
That's
uh,
so cool.
see it. Just
Yeah.
to me, it's like any kind of sporting event. I mean, you go to a football game, you don't bet. I mean, I
Right.
don't.
Yeah. No.
I just like to go to a football game. It's kind of like that for me, but I know that makes me very weird.
No,
So,
I think that's
so
awesome.
okay.
You can come to a Denver Broncos game with us anytime you want
Okay.
if they're winning. Um,
Okay.
are there any horses that are on your radar now that you go, oh, I really like that one? Or is there anybody that's special to you in today's racing?
Well, I was a big fan of Arrogate, Stallion, um, and I follow his progeny
Mm,
uh, because he had an abbreviated stud career. So I follow his sons and daughters. There's a filly named Nuit Magique, who is a daughter of Arrogate from his last crop. And she just had her second start, and she started late. She didn't start as a 2-year-old. And guess who she's trained by, coincidentally? D. Wayne Lucas.
really?
Yes, and she killed it in her first start, and she just won her second start. So I'm very, very curious to see what happens with her
So he
because
is still alive.
Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne is still.
Wayne's, I believe, 89 now,
I
and
saw something.
he has another horse that just won a big race named American Promise, who is very new to racing as a 3-year-old,
Yeah,
and he is now on the Derby trail. He's qualified for the Derby because he won. Oh shoot! I forget which race it was, um, a race at Oaklawn,
Hmm.
but that carried Derby points. And and Wayne has another one named Caldera, another horse in training that is going to run this coming weekend, trying to get enough Derby points to get in the Derby. But it
Wow.
looks very likely that Wayne Lucas will have a Derby horse again at his
What?
age. And last year he won the Preakness with Seize the Gray, who was owned by My Racehorse, which is a group that's made up of people like yourself and me that can buy a share of a racehorse for a very low amount of money, like $150, and then you're considered a part owner.
Well, how
Um,
cool.
yeah, and Seize the Gray was a son of Arrogate, also trained by D. Wayne Lucas, who won the Preakness last year, and he's at stud now. His This will be his first season at stud.
This is incredible because I saw something on him when he was, it must have been a couple years ago because he was young 80s, if you can say young.
Yeah,
And he looked like he still had so much life in him. He was on in a saddle. He said he tries to do that every day.
well, he still gets up at, I don't know, 3:30 or 4 in the morning to train. He still goes out on a pony in his chaps and Western tack
Yep.
and watches his own horses train every morning, rain or shine.
So he is
And
hands on. He doesn't have, it's not like he's got somebody under him that he's
he
having.
does have an assistant trainer that he's had for a long time,
Mhm.
but he doesn't back off. I mean,
Yeah.
he's doing the same things, and he's got really good horses. And I mean, for him to win the Preakness last year, um, everybody was so happy for him.
Yes, I'm sure. That's that in itself. There's another story right there. Just his whole life story.
Well,
Story.
it is. It is. It's a
Are there any books about him that you know of?
Yeah, there's a book called D. Wayne that I used in my research, but that only covers up to, I don't know, I
Mhm.
think maybe the 90s, if that far.
Wow.
So everything since then I had to get from newspaper, magazines, internet, and interviews, because that's the biography of him was written. Who knew that he would live to be
Really? And still be doing and still working. That is
right? And
silly.
he has no intention of quitting.
That's amazing.
Doesn't want to, loves it.
Yep.
Everybody, anybody who knows him would know why. It's just his passion in his life. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to do anything else, and he doesn't want to quit.
Yeah, that's thrilling. Good. That's when you know you're not working. You are just living. And
And he says that,
yeah.
when you're doing what you love, it doesn't feel like work,
Yes.
even
Yeah.
though it is
Uh-huh.
hard work.
Oh, so how did you know you when you had gotten all, how did you know when you had finished researching? You know, how
That's
did
such a
you?
good question,
Yeah, I just wondered.
because it was my first book, and it was my first nonfiction book, and it was the first book that required me to do research to even write it. And I loved doing the research. I loved all the things that I got to find out and the people that I got to meet. Um, but I was so afraid, because I wasn't an insider of thoroughbred racing. I didn't have a lot of connections. I didn't know a lot of people. I was afraid that I was going to miss something or leave something out that was really important. And so uh, I think looking back on it, I probably over researched it quite a bit. Um, so the answer is you never know, because I did find things near the end when I was getting ready to shut off the spigot as far as
Uh-huh.
research was concerned, because I had to actually finish the book.
Wow.
Um, you know, to say I didn't find out about the jockey race between Lafitte Pincay and Angel Cordero until really late in the process, and then I had to go back and rewrite certain chapters and make them flow and put that into the story.
Yeah.
But what really convinced me that it was time to move on and not research anymore was when I started asking people questions in interviews that they didn't know the
Uh-huh.
answer to, or they didn't remember. I thought, well, you've over researched now. It's time to
Yes.
move on.
It's kind of like the fisherman fishing a pond, and you feel like, oh, you got them all out.
Well, and it's also a form of procrastination for a certain type of person. Like, it's easier to read more because it's so interesting and fun than it is to sit there and actually write the book.
I can
I'm very good at finding excuses to not do the hard things.
Yeah, I think of Stephen Pressfield when you say that, and oh man, The Art of War. Have you read that? Or The
No.
War of Art, I mean, The
The
War of
what?
Art. Stephen Pressfield, The
No.
War of Art. He talks just about that. He talks about resistance, and it'll come in every form, even if you think it's
Yeah.
working. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the thing is, once I get going and once I'm doing it, I think, why do I do this to myself every time? I mean, even
Hmm.
now I still do it. It's like you think of a million reasons to not sit down.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
like just once you sit there, you know, sometimes good stuff happens, but if you
Yeah.
don't sit there, it's never going to happen.
There's so many people, from what I've heard, that wish they could they want to write a book. It's on their bucket list. I can't remember the percentage, but it's a high percentage. And you're in that rarefied air of those who actually did it and completed it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Oh,
There were times when I didn't think I would, but
yeah.
yeah,
Do you miss that? Once it was done, was it kind of sad in a way for you or
it was. Part of me was relieved that because just to get it done, just
yeah,
to physically get it done and get it out there, was a huge relief. Um, but yeah, there was a sadness to it,
yeah,
because I was living it when I was writing it. It was
yeah.
it was a part of my life, a big part of my life for about, I don't know, five to 7 years.
Wow.
So then it's like you finish it and it's like, now what?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
it's it does kind of leave a hole in a certain sense.
Which brings us to the next question I was going to ask you. Now what?
Well, a lot of people wanted me to write another horse racing book, but I just couldn't get the same spirit and passion for that I had for this one. And for some reason, I think that's important as a writer. Now that I've finished a book and I know what it really takes,
Yeah.
um, I don't want to start a project unless I have that spirit and passion at the beginning because I know I'll never get to the end.
Right.
And to be honest, if I'd have known at the beginning of this one what I was in for, I'm not sure I would have started it. I'm not sure that I would have had the courage to see it through. So now I'm writing uh, fiction, short stories that have nothing to do with horses or racing, just stories about life, about people, about what it's like to be in the world.
Oh, that's great. Are you published? Are these being published or?
Not so far. I mean, I took a whole year off after this book came out because I was really drained by it.
Sure.
And I didn't want to write a thing. I just wanted to chill. But
Yeah.
I have been writing stories for, I'd say, the past 2 years, and I'm just now starting to submit them to
Mhm.
journals and stuff like that, and hope that at some point there'll be a collection.
Yes.
But even if they're not, I'm still happy doing it.
What about a screenplay for a movie?
A lot of people have said that, but I don't have the PR or chops to take
Yeah.
that on. I
Yeah.
mean, if somebody wanted to do that, of course I would be thrilled.
Well, I think it would
But
be amazing.
I don't have that pushing me now as a project, let's
Right,
say.
right. Of course, you didn't know that you were going to do this either. So who knows what's
True,
going to happen down
true. I
the road.
guess anything's
Maybe
possible.
as a result of of now having it as an audiobook and this interview and other factors that we can't even foresee.
You never know.
It would be well worth it. It's beautiful, a
Well,
beautiful.
thank you.
Yeah,
She
thank
was
you.
a beautiful being. She was a
Yeah,
beautiful horse, and uh, she in that place and time, she was a once in a lifetime horse, and I just wanted her to be remembered.
yeah. You honored her memory and the people that were involved in her life too.
Right, right.
Uh, Anything else? Man, I'm really happy with what we've talked about.
Um, no, one thing I would like to say um, to you personally, and to anyone else listening to this, if you are an author wanting to produce an audiobook, you could not have a better person to work with, more understanding, more sincere in your desire to make it the best that it can be, easy to work with, and genuinely interested in my work, anybody's work. I had no idea what it was going to be like to produce an audiobook with anyone, because I that just wasn't on my radar. But having done it, I would 3,000% recommend you to anybody. And I really appreciate what you did for me and for my work in getting this done. It means a great deal to me.
Mary, that is just I'm speechless. That was such a beautiful recommendation, and I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, because it was a treasure. This was an exceptional time for me. I really did appreciate the fact that we had time to do it.
Yeah,
You
there
know,
wasn't. Yeah, no, I
it could
really
cook.
wouldn't change anything about it.
Yeah. Well,
I I enjoyed hearing it. I enjoyed, it's different, the written word versus hearing your own writing or your own story. You just process it differently. And hearing it made me appreciate some parts more, or like, oh gosh, I wrote that.
uh-huh.
Or other points where, oh, that was bad. I needed to change that.
Oh,
Like I wish I would have changed that sentence a little bit or
that's
something.
just my
But
reading. That wasn't you.
no. But you hear it, and it lands differently, I guess. And
I get it. Yeah.
I hope that some people get to have that experience of hearing it, and enjoy it and get something out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, and you're not the first author who has said that about the fact that it feels different, audio versus
Yeah, it
written
wasn't
word.
something that I would have thought
Yeah.
before starting out.
Well, I'm glad you could re-enjoy it and you kind of get the
Yeah,
feel,
it was fun. It was
how it feels
fun
to us.
to
Yeah,
hear it. Yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
so good. Well, I so appreciate that, and I appreciate working with you. You're a beautiful spirit and a great, like I said,
Oh,
writer. I would have thought this was like your 10th book or something. Had no idea that this.
well, I did write a novel that never got published.
Oh
I
yeah,
gave up. I sent it out and then I gave up. And I've written fiction off and on my whole life.
yeah.
But so it was a big surprise to me that my first book that actually got published was a nonfiction book, because
Wow.
I wouldn't have thought that would happen to me. So you never know. But
Yeah,
just keep
I hope.
writing. If you're a writer, just keep writing and keep trying. And especially if you like it, who cares? Just
Yes,
do it. Just do it.
right. Oh, that's such good advice. And then we do have writers who come here and watch this, so I hope they are inspired as I am.
Well, thanks. If I can do it, a lot of people can.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for blessing us with your time here today, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to talk about this.
Treasure it. Thank you. Blessings to you.
Okay. You
Thank
too.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
What a wonderful visit with award-winning author Mary Perdue. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to check out Mary's contact and order information in the show notes, and go buy the book for a riveting read, and download and listen to the audiobook. Good stuff. Thanks for being here today at the Skydance Mountain Author Spotlight for creators across the globe, where we encourage you to get off your duff and create great stuff. See you here again soon.